Hello, everybody, and welcome to what I believe is episode 27 of the Love Bomb Chats. I am joined by my friend and fellow author Caleb Clark. His debut novel slash novella is coming out. Tell people when it's coming out. Tomorrow. So if you're watching it live, you will know that today is September 2nd, meaning that the book comes out September 3rd. His book is titled Tanner's Place. As much as Caleb likes to say that it is a horror, it is a dark fantasy, is what I'm calling it.
I would, in marketing terms, I would call it a dark fantasy. I am going to stick to my guns and say it is a horror story in a fantasy setting. Thank you, Derry.
Yeah. I disagree with you on your book, so therefore my opinion is obviously the correct one. But
well, we're in your space. I'll take it. So
no, honestly, Caleb is in my writers group, so Caleb has very generously read 70 versions of my book, and I have read multiple versions of Tanner's Place, and it was a very fun experience for me because when we started our writers group, I very much said I don't read horror. And I still don't. And you kind of warned me as we were going into it. You're like, are you going to be able to read my stuff? And I was like, I think so. At least that's my hope. But I did just fine because I find it's more dark fantasy than anything else.
yeah, and like it's funny because like I've already gotten some ARC reviews, and one of them says that it's marketed as horror. It doesn't read as such. Again, I disagree, but I think it really depends on like what qualities you're looking for in a horror story.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking for like splatterpunk and you're just looking for like the worst description of people dying possible, no, it's not that.
This is very true, Derry. This is very,
true.
very true.
So, when we started the writers group, I remember Lori going on a big long monologue about how she hated the concept of romanticism.
I did. Yeah, I really did. And lo and behold, it became my entire personality and identity over the last year. But it's been interesting because lately I have been not necessarily veering away from it because I definitely haven't, but I've been wanting more of that big scope, epic feeling, traditional fantasy type thing. So you and I talk about this off screen because we chat every week. But I recently read the Ashen series, the first two books of that by Demi Winters, which is this epic romantic fantasy with Viking inspiration, which I loved, and I'm like pushing you to read. But what have you read lately that you have been loving?
So I've been reading several things. I tend to juggle like 5 books at once.
You do, yes.
Oddly enough, despite wanting to be like a fantasy horror author, I've read almost no horror the whole year. I think the only horror novel I've actually read is The Buffalo Hunter Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones, which I liked upon reading, but the farther I get away from it, the more I appreciate it. So yeah, but that's a whole other conversation. But things I've been enjoying lately, what's the vibe? Oh, hang on, I'll finish this thought and then I'll answer that question, Derry. Things I've been reading lately that I've been loving: The Winter King by Bernard Cornwell, which Laura's been on me about. I'm about 75% of the way through it.
I have it right here. Yes. Yeah.
I recently read Never Die by Rob J. Hayes. Ripped through it, loved it. I loved every second of it. Another book that like I wouldn't classify as horror, but very much has horror elements. And then I just finished the 5th Malazan book, Midnight Tides.
Did you finish?
Yes, I finally finished it. I've only been reading it for 8 months.
It hasn't been that long, has it?
I started it in January. It's been 8 months.
Did you really? Did you really? Okay.
But like,
I've completely lost track, honestly. Whenever I hear you say a Malazan book in my mind, I'm like, he's moved on to the next one.
It's one of those series where like it just requires so much from you as a reader. Like I would go to read it and like I'd read 2 sentences and be like, no, I'm tired, not right now.
Yes, I haven't ventured there yet, but that's the general consensus from most people. So I'll be curious to see how I feel. So if it's not a gore fest horror story, what is the vibe of Tanner's Place, Caleb?
Yeah, so I would describe it more as a folk horror. Folk horror lends more on like atmosphere. So dark, creepy woods, mysterious cults, maybe an eldritch entity. My book has all of that. So the basic thrust is that there are these 2 women One is an elf and the other is an orc. While they're on a job in a northern kingdom, they end up getting stuck in a small town called Tanner's Place. And there they interact with a cult that does not like them. And I will, for risk of spoilers, I would leave it at that.
I would say probably don't divulge too much more, yeah, because then you are venturing into spoiler territory. But yeah, that would be the vibe. I also cannot believe it is September. But I have my fall decor out. I have for the last several weeks because I wanted to be done with summer. So I am very happy that we are now officially in approved decorating weather
This
time.
summer in particular has been miserable, at least here in the Midwest.
Yeah.
It has been wet and hot and
We have
wet.
not had that on the the East Coast. It has been super, super dry. We are desperately in need of rain where I'm at right now. Like we keep looking outside and we're like, maybe tomorrow, but it just hasn't come. So why don't you give everyone a little bit of background on what are the books that Caleb loves? Because I know some of the books that you love, but for people that don't know you, for a little bit more background context here, Caleb and I met because we were part of the 2023 class, yeah, for BookTube. My channel, I started in January of that year. When did you start your channel?
I think I started in January of that year as well.
Yeah, so we kind of got pulled in to the Discord for that year, that group, which is a really nice group of people. And then yeah, Caleb and I, we started interacting a little bit. We did a few shared panels on different channels, like on Colin's channel and things like that. But we then started up this writers group in August of that year. And we were working on, I think, were you working on Tanner's Place at that point? Because I feel like you were.
I'd had a first draft of it done. I think I was in my second draft actually. So
yeah, so that's basically how we got to become such good friends. And then of course we meet weekly and interspersed with critiquing and talking about what we're writing, we talk about what we read. So Caleb and I have a general understanding of what it is that we like and we don't like, but we have one shared massive love, even though our genres tend to differ most of the time. And that love is Caleb.
Joe Abercrombie.
It sure is.
Oh,
there
man.
He is, right behind me, and right there. Yeah, I'm actually
the man.
He is, and I have jumped back into the Devils, so I am reading the Devils now again. I had started it a few months ago, but I just wasn't in the headspace to read it, and now, like I said earlier, I'm just craving some fantasy that I know I'm going to really enjoy, and I have yet to not enjoy a Joe Abercrombie book.
Yep, the Devils is on my docket. Once I finish The Winter King and once I finish Blood Over Brighthaven, it's going to be the next one I tackle. So,
and you still have Age of Madness to do, which is exciting.
I do still have Age of Madness to do. I haven't done it yet. So, but I also need to listen to the short story collection first.
Oh yes, so and you got to do the audio for that one. You absolutely have
I've got it. I've got it loaded.
Yeah, I'm excited. So you and I talk about this off screen, but what is it that you love about Joe Abercrombie so much?
It's really one of those things of what don't I love about Joe Abercrombie? All right. I think of the authors I read, I think Joe Abercrombie has the strongest voice as a author. Because I was talking to my friend who I've also gotten hooked on Abercrombie recently. Is like he just has such a distinctive like cadence to his prose. Like if I pick any paragraph of any Joe Abercrombie book, I think I could identify it as Abercrombie.
Fair.
That's
fair. Just to answer this question, sorry. Romantasy is typically romance and fantasy kind of shoved together. So there's different ways you can go about describing this because Sookie Stackhouse would not be romantasy. It would typically be categorized as paranormal romance. As soon as you start getting into vampires, werewolves, all that type of thing, it tends to be more paranormal romance than anything else. But romantasy, there's romantic fantasy and romantasy. So with romantasy, if you take away the romance, the plot doesn't stand up on its own. With romantic fantasy, if you take away the romance, the plot still stands on its own. That's generally how I describe it to people. But it's minutia. A lot of the time, it doesn't really matter. Carry on about Mr. Joe Abercrombie.
Yeah, so Abercrombie, I think he is like a master of character. And writing distinctive voices and also writing their arcs and making them interesting. No one does it like him.
And who is your favorite of the characters in First Law?
Oh, that it's got to be Casca.
Oh, he's so great. He's so great.
As much as I love Glocka in the First Law, I think overall, in terms of like who I would just smile when they came on the screen, so to speak, on page, it was Casca every single time. And
every time, yeah. I have to agree. It's funny because initially when I read through the series, I mean, everyone knows, if you've been here, my love of Sandan Glokta. I love him so much. But when I got through the standalones, I was like, Bremer Gorst. Like, he's definitely top 3, like, for sure.
I think Gorst is certainly one of my favorite perspectives.
So good. So good. And only made better by Stephen Pacey's narration, because the voice that he gives to Bremer is just chef's kiss perfection. But there is a character in Age of Madness who I love so much. And then as I was thinking about it on reflection, I was like, I think it's probably Glokta, Age of Madness character, and Casca. Like, those are probably my top 3, because Casca is also, every time he's on screen, I laugh every single time.
My buddy that I've got hooked on First Law right now, he's reading Best Served Cold at the moment. So soon as we get through the standalones, we're gonna buddy read Age of Madness. So
okay, yeah. Best Served Cold is my least favorite, as you know, of the standalones.
Yeah, and after reading all 3, I would agree with you. It is my least favorite.
Yeah, I still super enjoy it. But it's definitely one of those things that the further I've gotten away from it, I thought initially Red Country was my least favorite of the 3, but it's switched that Red Country is second. I know Red Country is 1 for you, but for me,
Red Country is number 1 for me. I love Red Country, so I
Heroes for me. Every single day. Blacked Out as like a center of a book. Yes, I'm there.
Yeah,
I'm absolutely there.
I think it's close between the Heroes and Red Country. I think it's closer than you think it is, but it is Red Country just because of the arc. And like, I've like, of all 3 of them, that was the book where I was like, I have to keep reading this. I have to find out what happens. So like, there was so much momentum to that story.
Yeah, I read a whole bunch of paranormal romance fantasy, and agree Yuki Stackhouse is that, not romantasy for me. The fantasy half needs to be traditional epic sweeping scale to be romantasy. I completely agree, Derry. So Caleb, were you always a big reader, or when did reading become a part of your life, and writing as well?
So reading and writing have always been a big part of my life. I have been reading ever since I could remember, reading things like Percy Jackson in school. I actually was not on the Harry Potter bandwagon when it first came out. Like, I was like the age range for that. Well, actually, I think you're more.
I am the age range. You are just under,
just under. So, but I mean, I was in school when it was huge. I think I was a sophomore when Deathly Hallows came out. So, but I didn't read any of them until
for non-Americans. Can you explain what grade a sophomore is?
So that would be 10th grade.
Yes.
So I was in 10th grade, and I ripped through all of them my senior year of high school. So I didn't grow up with it the same way I did like Percy Jackson.
Yeah. Yeah, I missed the Percy Jackson thing by a few years, and I haven't read those. So yes, you're welcome. I was a teacher, and I could never remember the sophomore freshman thing. I was just like, it's years. I don't know what they are, but they're years. So I haven't read the Percy Jacksons because I'm planning on reading them with my daughter when she's old enough, but I'm holding out because a lot of people I know love them. So I'm hoping I will really enjoy them, but I get really nitpicky with mythological retellings, so we'll see.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much you'll enjoy it. I'm not sure how much I would enjoy it now. As a 12-year-old, ripped through it, loved it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's sad because middle grade fiction is really disappearing because of literacy rates in America, and they're starting to show that YA has expanded so much that a lot of YA is now encompassing the lower end. The lower end of YA is kind of taking over middle grade spaces, and then there's a lot of YA that I've read in the last couple years that doesn't read YA to me. I'm like, this reads much more adult, but I loved having good middle grade fantasy fiction to read when I was that age, and I worry that we're getting a little too far away from that.
Yeah, I one, I agree with you, but also for me personally, my reading journey, I almost completely skipped all of that.
Mm,
Uh, so I did middle grade readers. I read like Alex Rider, uh, The Lightning Thief, Percy Jackson, and
mhm.
all that, and then I skipped right to reading adult fiction.
Yeah.
I think I read Percy Jackson in like sixth grade. Seventh
Mhm.
grade, I started reading Tom Clancy novels,
Oh, geez. Yeah,
which is a dramatic jump.
it is.
And then senior year, that's when I really discovered fantasy because that's when I started reading the Forgotten Realms Drizzt Do'Urden books by R.A. Salvatore.
Hmm.
And then I jumped right into horror. And then I was reading Stephen King for I think 5 years. So
I have the only Stephen King material that I have read is the short stories that has the Shawshank Redemption in it, which
uh,
I think is the all seasons. It's like something for
is it
all
different seasons?
different seasons. Yeah.
But I also know
And
they sell Shawshank just on its own now. So
yeah, so goes to show it dates me a little bit, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved the film The Shawshank Redemption, which I had seen before I read it. So that probably enhanced my different seasons.
and I,
Yeah, probably enhanced my reading experience of it, but I've had zero desire to read Stephen King.
and like honestly, when people ask me like when they say they want to start reading Stephen King, I'm like ignore every single book, read the short stories, read The Green Mile, read Shawshank Redemption, read
Yeah.
literally any short story collection you can get because if there's one thing that man can do exceedingly well, it's short fiction.
I
Uh,
agree, honestly. And that's the thing. I am not a short story person in general. Novellas generally aren't my thing, which is why I encourage Caleb every single time we're writing something. I'm like, make it longer, make it longer, make it
yep.
longer. I love a longer book. Even if it's not like significantly longer, I struggle with novellas, except that one. Like that one, and I've told you The Emperor's Soul by Brandon Sanderson are my two favorite novellas that I've ever read because they're just so different. But I really do struggle with short stories. I'm like, I just want more.
Which is so funny because like I'm like the polar opposite reader.
Yeah.
I feel like a total outlier in the fantasy community because like for example, I'm
Mhm.
reading Malazan, these books just keep getting longer and it just demotivates me to read them.
I know. You and I talk about it all the time. Hey, Sarah Beth, where you're like, the pacing here could be significantly quicker. I'm like, or we could
Oh.
slow this down by like twice as long. It's just one of those things where it does vary so much from reader to reader. But do you feel like that has been influenced from you having jumped into the horror genre at a younger age and gotten used to more of that quick pace in your
I
novels?
I definitely do think so because again, like despite except for Drizzt, I really did not read fantasy. I was a fan of fantasy in other areas like the Lord of the Rings films, video
Mhm.
games, etc. But I
Yeah.
didn't really read fantasy fiction. So I do think my reading taste is much more inspired by like what I read as like my foundation, which was a lot of thrillers and a lot of horror.
Mhm. Yeah.
So like in my mind, that's where I get my kind of like go go go. This scene has to end mentality about things.
Yeah, that definitely was not me. I don't remember how old I was specifically, but I remember I did a lot of historical fiction reading as a kid. Hi Simon, nice to see you. And Derry, I'll answer this in a second. But I then jumped into Dan Brown in my teens and read, of course, the Da Vinci Code and
Mhm.
Angels and Demons and all that kind of stuff and was like, okay, this is fine. But it didn't hold me the same way that fantasy did. Like I enjoyed it for sure. And I still feel like that way as an adult. I'm like, okay, other genres are fine, but I don't engage with them the same way that I do fantasy. I have not read this Empress of Salt and Fortune. I have not read that. Have you, Caleb?
I have not, never even heard of it.
I had not either until just now, but I will
Gary,
have
give
to
us
look
the
at
deets. I want to know what it's about.
it. Yeah, Derry, let us know what it's about. But I don't know. It's funny because I read for the first time this month in years, a novel that wasn't fantasy or romance based, and it was murder mystery, but it was cozy murder mystery, which was The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. And
Okay,
it's
yeah.
funny because like you and I have talked about this. I detest cozy fantasy. Like I just can't do it because I know there's no real stakes involved, but at least with the cozy murder mystery, I'm like there's the mystery element. So, like, there are stakes of some kind, but it's funny to me because I was like, okay, this isn't bad. But I was like, it's not holding my attention the same way as a full 700-page fantasy novel would. It's just
Mhm.
different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, and I think that's really what it comes down to. I'm like, we've talked about our tastes and differences, and I just love a good pace. Character development is optional in that sense, so or like it should move along quickly.
Oh, I love good character development.
I love good character development that keeps the story
That goes
moving.
quick. Yeah, exactly. See, I am dairy. You can eat. I'm making this assertion out loud. I am hoping to start Robin Hobb soon because everyone tells me they're like character work, Joe Abercrombie and Robin Hobb, Joe Abercrombie and Robin Hobb. And I have been putting off Robin Hobb for years, as you know, because I haven't felt emotionally ready to be upset all the time. But I feel like I'm getting to that point where I can withstand the trauma that she will inflict upon me, because I really want to see what her character work is like.
I would say so. Keep in mind, like I'm not like there. I've only read Assassin's Apprentice, so everything I'm about to say is from the perspective of that.
Mhm.
I like Assassin's Apprentice. Assassin's Apprentice is almost the exception to the rule because wow, like nothing actually really happens until probably the last 80 pages of the book, which
Right.
I ripped through.
Yeah.
Um, but I really liked her character work in that, and Josh and I talked about this a little bit because Josh had read Assassin's Apprentice and was kind of
Yeah.
like on it. I
Yeah.
think what I like from what I inferred from the way she writes is how much character work she does and what's not said. Like Fitz has monologues, internal monologue. He has things that he thinks, and like
Yeah.
they're very clearly not true.
Mm.
Um, so I think that is what makes her character work interesting is seeing
Yeah.
how little Fitz thinks of himself.
Yeah. I watched her. Oh, I need to sneeze. Am I gonna sneeze?
I know
Yeah.
my allergies acting up. I'm like my nose is running. I'm like trying to be subtle about it. So
Got it. Um, she was at Worldcon, and a lot of people I knew went to Worldcon, and people I follow went to Worldcon, and they interviewed her, and they were asking, which of your characters is the most difficult to write? Not that I know any of her characters or who any of these characters are, but she made a good point of saying she's like, none of them, because when you're writing them and you get into their head, you believe everything they believe, or at least you should. And I was like, that's a really interesting way of writing it, is like they're a know-it-all in a sense, and they can never be
Mhm.
wrong because that's their perspective. Even though I write my books in first person, it felt like a very third person-y thing to be doing. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. So I don't know. Maybe at some point I'll get back to trying to write things in third person. It's been a hot minute since I've done
Yeah,
any writing
and
like
see, I'm the polar opposite. I cannot write in first person. I can barely read
that.
in first person. So
I love it. I love it so much. I struggled with it at first because fantasy, for the most part, that I had read was exclusively in third person. And then, really, when I switched over to Romantasy, it's a lot of it is in first person. And then I read Red Rising, which was also in first person. I was like, interesting. And then we got to the multiple POVs as first person. I was like, more interesting. So, yeah, I find writing in first person to be a very enjoyable experience for me because I feel like I know the character so much better in first person. It's not to say that I don't know them in third. It's just a different intimacy, I guess, with the character.
mhm. I think for me too, I think the reason I struggle with it, like the reason I'll probably always write in third person, except for like maybe one story I'm thinking of, is I kind of picture my books like movies. So like there's already like inherently an attachment. Like I see the scene, so I'm not seeing it
Mm.
through the character's eyes. So
Yeah, you and I write differently. You are much more of a plotter than I am. I am having to become a plotter, which is so inherently not what I do. I struggle with it so much. I I have notes somewhere and I was struggling to find them today because I have things coming up in book 3 of my series. And I was looking at this thing for book 3, even though it's happening in book 2. And I was like, where is it? And I was like, if I was just doing what I did with book 1, I could just be sitting here going, I'm making this up right now. And I miss that element a little bit.
Yeah, and it's so funny that you call me a plotter because I'm definitely probably a plotzer in the sense
Plotzer,
of
yeah.
like
You and I
I
have kind of
vaguely
attributed that
plot,
to ourselves.
but like
Yeah.
I mostly just shoot from the hip. I
Yeah.
have a general idea of where I'm gonna go. I like the analogy of when I was writing Tanner's Place, I did my outline and there's a chapter, and the only thing I wrote in my outline for it was Esha hallucinates, and that was it. That was what I
That's
had
it.
for the
Yeah.
whole chapter.
I
So I
didn't
was
even
like,
have those notes at all when I sat down and wrote The Forgotten Dawn. I was like, chapter 1, improvise. But I don't know. I find it liberating in a way. Like, I really love being a pantser in certain things. And then when plot kind of just comes together and you're like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. Um, yeah, I don't know. I love that magic that happens when you're pantsing a book.
oh, I totally agree because like again, like I'm a pantser by heart and a plotter by practice.
Yeah, that's fair.
But like there's something about like a scene organically coming together.
Yeah.
But like the way I plot it, for me when I'm writing, like if I just am there trying to like create on the spot, I can't.
Mhm.
It's like I always have to have like a general arc of like where the scene is trying to go. But a lot of times I won't follow that. So like in a writers group, like the chapter I submitted for this week, I literally just intended on adding an extra page to, and it is
Mhm.
one of my longest chapters in the whole book now.
Hey, good. I'm very happy to hear that. I haven't read
uh,
it yet, so that'll be good. Hey, are you coming over this way? Okay, stop. Come here, you. Okay.
I
There.
was gonna say, which one is it?
Yeah, Mercutio, always Mercutio.
Oh,
um, yes, I am quite familiar with the Shadow Daddy. My book has one.
yes, yes, you are.
Yes. I love that. You should patent that, Mr. Exactly, a Shadow Daddy. Ah, so what are you hoping to delve into reading wise over the next little bit that you haven't really had a chance to?
Well, the Devils, first of all. I am trying to get back into reading horror.
It's the time of year.
It's the time of year. By the way, Terrence Place is a great Halloween read. It's pretty short. You get through it in
It
a day or
is.
two. It is designed to be read in like 1 or 2 sittings.
Yep.
Um, but otherwise, like I'm gonna finish Cradle. Uh, I finished Malazan and literally just instantly downloaded the 6th book. And like I'm gonna rip through it. I'm gonna finish it by the end of
Nice.
the year.
That's exciting. I have been kind of trying to force myself to read with my eyeballs again because I haven't in such a long time. And I started doing this thing where at least I'm hoping to continue with it, but I want to read physically as well as audio, which I've been doing primarily audio for the last year or so. And I think, I mean, I'll be doing Hob with physical reading because everyone has warned me that I will not like the narration and that the narration for that series, for most of her series, is apparently not the best.
Really?
So I don't know. I might try to give it a go and just see. But yeah, I have been warned. Designed to be read in 1 or 2 settings. Caleb, I love you. Yeah, it is a fast-paced thing. It is very
It
fast.
it is fast. Dungeon Crawler Carl. Okay, I don't want to be this guy.
It is a
It's
love
not.
bomb, Caleb. Remember that.
It is a love bomb. So like I will say that I tried to read Dungeon Crawler Carl. I got about 60% of the way through it, and it's not that I disliked it. I just kind of realized it wasn't for me.
Mhm.
And the main reason for that is just because I don't like books that I feel are primarily about being funny. Like I like Joe Abercrombie because he is funny, but like the point of the book is not to
Incidental,
be what
yeah.
he is. Whereas like Dungeon Crawler Carmel, I feel is a comedy action progression series. Like I will put comedy first adjective.
Interesting.
And not that that's bad. I'm glad everyone loves it. I'm glad people are getting hooked on progression fantasy. That is a win for sure. But it's not personally for me. I do love Princess Donut though. She was without a doubt the best part of the book.
Hmm. Uh, yeah, this is what everyone has told me, Derry. So I'm feeling like it's got to be an eyeball read. But we
Malazan
shall
has the
see.
same problem though. Everyone is like, do not listen to the audiobooks.
I wonder though if you were to immersion read those, if that would make any difference. But I don't know if it would.
With Malazan, from what I understand, it has different narrators, not for each
Mhm.
book, I think, but and they pronounce things differently. So yeah, like that alone, I'm like, nah, I couldn't do that anyway.
That
Also,
bothers
Malazan, I
me.
really think requires slow reading. At least for my brain,
Mhm.
like it requires being read slowly.
That was one of the
And I listen
things.
to audiobooks at 2x speed,
Same
period.
here.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, you and I both do that. I mean, that was one of the things I made sure with my audiobook because it's dual narration. I was like, you guys need to say things the same way because I
mhm.
do not want it to be that one person is saying it one way and the other person is saying it another because that's wrong. Um, yeah, that would irritate me.
Yep. I'm one of those people where like I'm like you can pronounce things however you want,
Mhm.
but there has to be consistency once it's narrated.
That's the thing. Like, I didn't include a pronunciation guide in my book because I was like, however you want to say it is fine. But I feel like for the audiobook, you need to have that for the narrators. So at least there's consistency amongst the narrators. Um, but yeah, I've come to compare the first one like I do to Early Discworld. It's not addictive when it comes to her. Huh, interesting.
Really? So, because
I'll think
I've read the blurbs of the other books in the series, I'm like, it seems like it takes a pretty intense route. So like I said, like I think it just wasn't right for me in the moment, just because I was reading in the midst of me being really busy.
Mhm.
Um,
Have you
so
had a book in the past that you have gone to and thought like, "Nah, not for me," and then come back to it and it's been the right time and it's just hit?
yes, the First Law trilogy is
Yeah.
a great example of that
Was
because like
that
when
I think did I force you to go back and read
it,
it? Because I think I
yes,
did. Yeah, okay.
because like I think I said, yeah, I read the Blade itself, and I read like half of Before They Were Hanged. I was like, it was all right, and you're like, go back and read it right now.
And I think
Specifically,
I
listen
said
to the
audio.
audiobook.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I was like, "You
Yep.
must listen to Stephen Pacey," which he just makes that it is such a beautiful marriage between the two of them, and it's funny because I'm listening to The Devils now, and of course, Stephen Pacey narrates that one as well, and he has even more voices. Like, First Law has
Yeah.
so many voices, and in this one, I'm like, "We're getting more voices." There's a couple that are repetitive, but at this point, I'm like, how could there still be more? Like, Steven, you're spoiling us at this point.
He's
It's
incredible.
spoiling me.
He's
So,
incredible.
yeah, I love it. I am not surprised by this. I am not surprised by this at all. Dungeon Crawl gets super dark and the themes get heavy, yet stays funny too. Interesting. I plan to try it
Okay.
at some point. So it's
I
just
might need to
not
finish it
on
then.
my docket for the next little bit.
Maybe once I get through Cradle and I'm like, I need another like really good progression series because
Yeah.
progressive fantasy, it's one of those things where like it either like just 100% works for me or it
Mhm.
100% does not. So, and there's no middle ground.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm finding now I'm trying to force myself to branch out a little bit more for writing purposes because I feel like the wider you read as an author, the better your writing can become because
Mhm.
obviously different genres and even different subgenres can afford you certain things, but there's just I can't do certain genres and subgenres. I'm like I just don't like these. Like I really struggle with paranormal fantasy. It's just I don't have a crazy interest in vampires and werewolves and that type of thing. There is the odd book that I do that has I can enjoy it. That's part of the plot, but like it's not gonna pull me in the same way. So when it comes to reading within the romantasy genre, I'm like that's already like one chunk of books that I don't really want to read.
What would you classify Phantasma?
Dark dark
Dark.
romantasy.
That's dark.
Yeah, I friggin' ate up Phantasma, and I was like, "I want you to read Phantasma."
I
To be
know.
fair, not vampires, specters. So,
I was gonna say 'cause, like I think that was about ghosts. I feel like that would lean towards paranormal. So
exactly. I mean, it was so interesting though, and I loved it had a really gothic vibe to it. So that for me was also another big thing is because a lot of the time with paranormal, it's modern. At least the ones that I have read and I enjoy an urban fantasy or a modern fantasy, but I feel like it it really has to be specific for me to super enjoy it. But Phantasma slapped. I absolutely love Phantasma. And I think you would love it because the gore in that book is very, very well done.
Yeah. So again, my book isn't splatterpunk. I love a good horrifically violent book though.
With reading to support your writing in mind, has there been anything that struck you as being more powerful than you expected, Caleb? You can answer that first.
Yeah, multiple books. There's a lot of books that like kind of side or like hit like blindside me with how good they are. The Winter King is one of them. I know Laura went on and on to me about it. I'm like, I'll read it. I don't read historical fiction, so like it will probably be good, but then I'm reading it and like I very distinctly remember a scene like I'm in the middle of the living room, my kids are like fighting with each other, like I hear like everyone cooking in the kitchen, and I'm reading my book, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This is one of the best passages of fiction I've ever read in my life, and I was not prepared for it.
Exactly. Yeah. The Winter King is friggin' incredible. And I can honestly say it surprised me too. Like that trilogy as a whole shocked me with how good it was. I was so used to the Saxon Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell because I love The Last Kingdom, but it's just phenomenal writing. Like everything about that series is perfection. The first half of The Winter King is a bit slow, and you and I have talked about it in the sense that it's a lot of names that are thrown at you at the beginning, and it's a lot of info dumping. But I don't know if I can call myself a historian anymore because I don't teach or I'm not practicing, my education. But as a former historian, I appreciated so much the detail that went into researching that book, because even the different hair colors for the different tribes of Britain was so specific. And I was like, yes, Bernard, like this is where it's at. And I found that as well with Don Williams' Augustus book. That for me was such a phenomenal example of character work, because the book is titled Augustus and we really don't get him until the last third of the book. And you still feel like you intimately know all of these different people that it takes on the POVs of in that book. So I feel like those definitely have inspired me, just because I really do want to be a character writer. Like I love my characters. I hope that they come across as having unique personalities and having personalities, and they're not just background fodder. So I feel like those are definitely inspirations for me, I would say.
Absolutely. And to answer Jerry's question again, because I have to bring it up in every chance I get, Laura will disagree with me on this, but the other one that like blindsided me, just like how stunning it was, and like this book like altered
Where
like,
are you going with
soul, is The Spear Cuts Through Water.
I won't disagree with you on that. I enjoyed The Spear Cuts Through Water.
I mean, you enjoyed it. It changed my soul.
Yeah, I did not feel that way about The Spear Cuts Through Water, but I will say Josh and I talk about it, I wouldn't say often, but we do talk about it in the sense that it is the only use of second person that I've ever read that I have found to be A, well done, and B, just really fascinating in the way that it's presented. So that alone made it a very fascinating read for me, but it's not one that I think I will ever reread.
I'm thinking about rereading it next year, but like that book just had everything for me. It had beautiful prose.
The prose are beautiful. Yep.
It had an interesting framing device. It was horrific in some parts.
See, that's the funny part. It didn't bother me. That didn't bother me. And here I'm saying, like, I can't read horror. I'm like, it's just.
I think you're gonna So last year was your romantasy era. I think next year, horror girly.
I don't think so. No, I'm thinking I might be veering a bit back into epic fantasy and like older fantasy, because I'm really wanting to read some GGK again, and I'm wanting to kind of get into those like bigger books again. I think it's seasonal too, honestly. When winter and fall come around, I'm just like, I want to bundle up and get into a deep story that pulls me in, because I'm not going outside, and that way it's fun. Whereas in the summer, I'm like, fun, quick reads. But yeah, not quite the same vibe. Group reading paranormal romance. Now I prefer it with more fantasy or urban fantasy intertwined. I agree with that. I agree with that. Yes, The Winter King is phenomenal. I wish we had at least one Arthurian book from Mordred's perspective. That would be interesting. You could write it.
Yeah, write it.
Yeah. I'm wanting to read The Crystal Cave by Mary Stewart. That's going to be my next Arthurian read. Oops, from that intro into urban fantasy, but I'm glad to see paranormal romance type of books making a comeback for angels. Have you read Aliette de Bodard? Let me find the series name. I have not.
Yeah, I haven't even heard of it.
Strikes me as ironic that you say former historian. I don't know how to phrase it, Derry. I really don't know how to phrase it. Historian, was a historian. I really don't know. Dominion of the Fallen. Interesting. No, I have not read that. The only book I've really read with angels has been The Curse of Ophelia by Nicole Platania, which is a newer series. Yeah, Evie's not here, but she just got a burst.
Yeah, she's wherever she is, just suddenly she's like, someone's talking about something I really love.
Yeah, exactly. She usually like pops up. She's like, I was summoned. A non-practicing historian. I don't know how, like, really, I don't know how you would phrase this. I really have no idea. Not a horror fan either. I literally get scared and then can't sleep. This is me. This is so me, because with fantasy, I'm like, it's not plausible. Like in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, this didn't really happen. But if it could happen in the real world, I'm like, I can't read that, because then in my mind, it will happen. And it's too much. Can't process it.
And so I think that's probably where like I get pushed back on like the idea that not to keep playing my book, but the idea that like Tanner's Place isn't a horror is because like I think it appeals to a certain type of horror that I like, which is more of like literary horror.
Sure.
Just because I'm similar. I don't really like again, I like a good splatterpunk book, but I'm not really into like home invasion stories or like psychological horror. Like I like
exactly it. I can't read that. Yeah.
Yeah, I like things with more of a speculative element. So that's like Stephen Graham Jones. I haven't read Chuck Tingle, but as I understand, Chuck Tingle is more like that too. And I like it when the horror is about something, when it's an allegory for something else. So
yeah, fair enough. I don't know. I'll be interested to see kind of where each year takes me. I feel like when the year I started my booktube channel, it was definitely my year of Sanderson. I read, I think, 24 Sanderson books that year and really caught up on Sanderson. And then the next year was my romantasy year. Last year was over 100 romantasy books. It was a lot of romantasy books. This year has been much slower in terms of my reading, just because of everything that's been going on and writing and health and all that stuff. But I definitely feel like I read at the beginning of the year a lot more literary fiction and romance, which I haven't read in a long time, literary fiction specifically, and I forgot how much I enjoyed it because I read a lot of it in my teens. And I find if you're going to be writing a story that has romance in it of any kind, you really do need to read romance novels because they have the best banter. And I'm like, I need inspiration. Like, I want to know how to write good banter. So I feel like this year was kind of a return to that. But I was actually thinking about it today. I was like, I haven't read a lit fic or contemporary fiction in a couple months. So maybe I will in the next little bit, but I don't know.
Yeah. And like, I'm the same way. Like, I'm kind of curious to see like where my fits of reading take me. I've also been reading less this year, more so because I want to like intentionally slow down.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
I was hitting that book burnout of like, I was just cranking through books. And I feel like I was actually enjoying anything. So like, I'm slowing down. I'm actually reading what I'm reading and trying to like enjoy the moment. And that has led me to just DNFing like crazy. Whereas like I'm a big proponent of DNFing anyway.
You are,
but I've been aggressive about it this year. I went to start one book. I literally read the first 2 sentences. I was like, nope. And then I
There's
put
been
it
a
aside.
couple I would have DNF'd, but I was part of a book club that I had to read them, and I was like, I would have tossed this aside very quickly, but I didn't have that option. Uh,
Yeah, and like
yeah,
I'm also doing the our fantasy book bingo this year. This is the year where I'm like, I'm
right.
gonna finish it, and it is proving challenging. And I
Yep,
talked about this the other day, like
yep.
because neither of us like cozy fantasy
No.
either. And I think the one I read is a good example of the genre, but I don't like the genre. So
No, and that's the thing. There's elements about it that I really enjoy. And this is again like something you and I were discussing in the sense that I enjoyed aspects of Legends and Lattes quite a bit. I loved that it felt like a D&D campaign, like a break on a D&D campaign. But I was like, I'm never gonna read the prequel
mhm.
because I don't need to type thing. Like it just felt it was fine, and I enjoyed it for when I read it, but I'm not gonna sit there and think about it after. I want stories that linger with me, and cozy fantasy just doesn't have that appeal.
I require conflict, usually to an extreme degree, and not that there
Mhm.
isn't conflict in cozy fantasy, but it's not the same kind of stakes that I'm after in a story.
Mhm.
Um, and like Cradle being the exception to this because I want to call Cradle traumatizing, but broadly, my taste in anything is I want to be traumatized by it. Like
You
I want
do,
this book
yes.
to emotionally damage me, which is why the
Mhm.
Greenbone Saga is, even though Abercrombie is my favorite author,
You
the
do love
Greenbone Saga is
Greenbone.
my favorite series
Yeah, you do love
uh,
Greenbone.
because those books hurt me in many ways.
Fair, totally fair. Thank you, Derry. It was a feat, and Caleb will be joining the publishing ranks of this year as of tomorrow, which is very
Not
exciting.
not nearly as massive, but
No, but
I
still,
am doing it. So
still good. I have watched this movie, and I enjoyed it because of the amount of chocolate that was in it. Any food movie or show, I typically watch it. Yeah. I enjoy cozy fantasy, but I think Legends and Lattes is overrated. I really love the Spell Shop. I read the Spell Shop earlier this year for my book club. I get the appeal for people, but again, cozy fantasy and I just aren't really gonna be
yeah,
doing the same thing. We are the meme, the book that broke me to pieces. Here, read it. Yeah, 100%.
Derry,
Um,
yes.
I felt that way about a couple of Emily Henry books, specifically Happy Place. Happy Place was not my happy place when I was reading it. It broke me, and I was like, everyone should read this book. Which that's the thing too. Like I have noticed that since starting the first year of BookTube, it was all about read, 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 and read as much new as I could. And I've
Mhm.
gotten very comfortable with rereading. Like I love a good reread now, which I used to reread so much as a kid and in my teens. I loved rereading books. And I just stopped doing that for a really long time. And I'm happy to be revisiting books that I enjoy.
And see, like rereading is something that I never do. I reread a book this year, which is probably the third time collectively I've reread a book, period. And one of those times was also rereading this book. And for those wondering,
Yeah,
it is Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton, a
it is
book that I
Jurassic.
continue to love more every single time I read it.
And that's the thing. I feel like there are a few books in my life that I've reread them. I'm like, okay, I didn't enjoy it as much as I did the first time. And then there's been other books, and I'm like, I love it even more than I did the first time. And I love picking up new things, new nuances, but also I love the comfort of knowing ahead of time that I'm not wasting my time because I
Mhm.
know I'm going to love what it is that I'm listening to or that I'm reading. It's just the best. Yeah, I absolutely love it. I love reading Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Oh, Jurassic Park, the one book you don't need to read for the character. You read for the dinosaurs. Can the dinosaurs count as the character?
You read to listen to Ian Malcolm like wax poetic about like the flaws of Western science and
Mhm.
like how like the hubris of man thinking he can be God, or
Yeah.
worse that he thinks he can affect the planet at all. Like
Mhm.
there's a point like where Ian Malcolm is just on morphine and Mike Crichton just uses it to be on his soapbox and just monologue about everything. They
I
are the
love
best
that.
catchers. So
I love that. I had Do you like poetry at all? Is that something that you ever can get
I d-
into or not
so
really?
because I was a theater major and like for a brief stint English major, I've read a lot of poetry. I'm not opposed to it. There's poetry I like, but I don't proactively read it. So
Sure. I'm very similar in that I can appreciate it and I love a good play, but I'm not generally one that's like seeking out poetry and stuff. There's been a couple of poems over the last few months that have found me and I've thought like, I quite enjoy those. Of course, now I'm not going to be able to think of one of them. I think I might have saved it on my Goodreads because I really, really loved it. But there was a sonnet that I came across this morning. I believe it was Sonnet 29 by Shakespeare. And I was like, oh, this is so nice, and it's like the hidden layers and layers and layers and layers and stuff. And it's like, I really do love, like you were talking about earlier, when things are allegorical in writing. And for me, I think it was the most allegorical Shakespeare that I've come across. And I was like, this is interesting.
Yeah, I like a few of the sonnets. I couldn't quote a single one of them to you now, but I remember reading them and being like, this one is really nice.
Yeah, I could not recite a single thing to you from Shakespeare other than friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. And a few scenes from Romeo and Juliet, like that's it.
I had to read so much Shakespeare and talk about Shakespeare so much in school. Theater majors have to talk about Shakespeare.
Shocking.
I've got wild opinions on it that we can save for another time. But generally, it's like I don't read poetry, but like I really like when prose has poetic qualities. The book does lack Jeff Goldblum, and like the way
100%.
Crichton describes Crichton, he sounds like he looks like a dork, but man, he has great monologues, and like it doesn't matter. Like I read the book, I'm like, I don't care how he describes Malcolm, it is Jeff Goldblum. So I read the monologues in the Goldblum's voice. 10 out of 10. Would recommend.
So I looked it up because I was curious, and it was a poem by E.E. Cummings, and it's in 100 selected poems. For whatever we lose, like a you or a me, it's always ourself we find in the sea. And I just loved that. I loved it so much. I was like, oh, that's great. I love a good rhyme or a good, I mean, like, I've included poems and songs in my books. So that for me is something I really love. I know it's not everybody's favorite. Like
I famously skip the songs and skip the poems and almost everything I read.
I've made him read them for mine because he has to critique them. And I know it is pain.
Yes, I did read Laura's, but generally, like I remember when I read Lord of the Rings, I was like, there's a lot of songs in here.
Oh, I love it. And here I am. I'm like, listen to Andy Serkis because the songs are so good. And you're like, I skipped the songs. And I was so aghast by that notion. I was like, how on earth could you skip the songs, especially when it's Andy Serkis? That seems sacrilegious. But yeah, I love the movie Jurassic Park, but my favorite Crichton book is Sphere.
I haven't read Sphere yet. I have it on my shelf. I've had it on my shelf for about 8 years. I need to read it. So
yeah. I almost never reread. There are too many books and not enough time. I hear you. It's hard.
Yeah, that's me. So
that used to be my mentality, and I still struggle with it a little bit at times. I'm like, oh, I should be reading new stuff, and I'm like, or I could go back and reread Emily Henry for the 70th time in the last 2 years. Rereading allows you to look beyond the story and notice the world, the characters, the subtext, and all the richness that we were too busy to notice the first time. 100%. I feel this way deeply, especially with fantasy books, because fantasy is just so layered a lot of the time that I feel like sometimes on a first read, I get more absorbed in the world. And then on a reread, I might get more absorbed in the characters or vice versa. But yeah, I read it for John Hammond being eaten by
yes. Yeah, that's one. We'll have to do another Love Bomb where I just get the monologue about Jurassic Park, because I love both the movie and the book for totally different reasons. But one of the reasons I don't like the movie, or one thing I don't like about the movie, is that Hammond is way too sympathetic, and in the book he is a fucking villain.
Yeah, you have said that on multiple times. You're like, he is the worst. Yeah. Yeah. For prose to have poetic qualities, I think you didn't really enjoy. Okay, I'll look it up.
Oh, but speaking of that point, Derry, one thing I think I was in the midst of saying this, and then I talked about Jurassic Park again. But that's one thing I'm really enjoying about The Winter King again, is like it has poetic qualities. I think what I really like heightened prose.
Yeah.
I guess melodrama is the word for it. Like it feels melodramatic, but like there's such a larger sense of scale to the writing, I think. I think Cornwell does that exceedingly well in The
He
Winter
does.
King. Making the characters human and interesting.
Oh, and it gets so much
Balancing the
better.
history, but
I'm
then it
so
just
excited for
also
you.
feels so elevated and so it feels like you're reading a legend.
Honestly, I am so excited for you to read Enemy of God
I
because
know you are.
oh my God, Enemy of God is incredible. It's just that book from the first to the last page it's perfect. It's perfection. So yeah, I'm very excited for you to read it. And if you don't like it, our friendship is over. So,
Well, I have a feeling that if I'm liking The Winter King this much, I will love it. So
yes, honestly, and that you and I kind of have a similar trajectory with how we came onto The Winter King, where it was like, okay, this is not maybe vibing the way that I want it to for the first little bit, and then you're like, what's happening here? And you kind of jump in and you're like, okay, I'm here for this now,
and
and
then
it
you
just
read
gets better
maybe
and
the
better.
best fight scene in
Yeah,
fiction,
and that's the thing.
and
I
then
don't
you
even
meet
like fight
Galahad,
scenes.
and then you're locked in.
Oh, Galahad, amazing. And then you meet Lancelot, and you want to punch him in the face so hard. It
I was
is.
so blindsided by
Oh,
it because like I didn't know how he was gonna handle Lancelot, but like making him like a prick was the best choice
it was
possible.
so smart. And honestly, I was thinking about it after I read it, and I was like, I don't know if I've read a version of Lancelot that is this unlikable because I've read the old text, like the Mort d'Arthur and all that stuff in the French, and I'm like, he's more of like a sympathetic character because he's so in love with Guinevere that you feel bad for him. And I'm like, he's just an asshole. Like he is the absolute worst. And I freaking loved that. I was like, it's just such an interesting dynamic. And also the fact that you hate him as much as you do by the end of the series, that he's been written well. It's just
Mhm.
it's the same way whenever you watch someone on a TV show, like the guy that played Joffrey, you're like, he is horrendous and he did such a good job for me to have that emotion towards him.
Mhm.
Like I love
Mhm.
that feeling. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that our friendship will be over. Yeah. I hear you, but I won't think less of you, Caleb, but I will be judging your choices from
Intense.
that point on. Yeah, exactly. But no, I think you will love Enemy of God, and honestly, the whole trilogy is very, very good. So I'm not worried. I'm not worried. And yeah, in terms of other poetic prose, I feel like GGK has probably been that for me, specifically with A Song for Arbonne was highly poetic. Um,
Yep,
but I'm trying to think beyond
GGK is
that.
on the docket eventually, so
Yeah, you haven't read Lines, have you?
I haven't read any GGK, so I
Yeah.
have Tigana, which I know you are mixed on, but that almost makes me want to start there because I'm like, well, if it gets better from there, I want
Yeah,
to.
it's just so different, I feel like. And I know a lot of other people too that have read a bunch of GGK and they definitely think that is his weakest book. So it might not be the worst place for you to start, but simultaneously, I selfishly want you to start with Lions because it's my favorite, and I'm like, it's so good.
It might be one of those things where I'm like, if there's things I like about it, I'm like, yeah, there's things I really like about this, but it's not hitting. I'll probably drop it and read Lions. So
That's fair. That's fair. I feel like it's pretty regular. I read something and I'm like, hey, Caleb, I want you to read this. And you read maybe like one out of every 17 books I suggest.
you do
So
fancy books
it's
a
fine.
lot.
I
So
feel like really of all the books I've suggested thus far, the only one that has been read has been First Law. I think that's probably correct. Oh, Winter King and Winter King. Yeah, those
yeah,
two.
and Winter King. So I don't. Is that really it?
You've DNF'd a couple of books that I started when Josh and I were doing our book club. So I think so.
Oh
That's gotta
yeah,
be
because
it.
like we
Yeah.
were going through because like you guys had to finish it. I didn't.
You
So
did. Yeah, you did not. No, but you DNF'd Malice, I believe,
I
right?
I DNF'd Malice.
And then you DNF'd Sword of Kaigan.
I did
And
DNF Sword of
you
Kaigan.
DNF'd Grace of Kings.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I DNF'd all of
Yeah.
those. So
So yeah, you're just DNFing all the things that I was forced to read, but it's fine.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Uh
Good times.
boy, I could have monologues about all three of those books. So
So could I, but that would not be a love bomb
yeah, that
conversation.
would not be a love bomb conversation at all.
Probably
So
not. So tell people what you are planning on doing with your writing. What are you excited to be writing about in the future?
yes, so I'm currently writing my full-length novel, which is set in the same world of Tanner's Place, but is different. So my thrust on that series is that it's an interconnected world, but they can each be read independently. And like they all kind of feed into each other, but you don't have to read them in a specific order or all of them at all. So Father of Flies is the working title of my next one. It definitely builds on a lot of what's in Tanner's Place, but Tanner's Place is not necessary to read that book. And like, again, we're really trying to figure out the formula for horror fantasy, and Laura's already telling me it's not.
It's not. But here's the thing, viewers. Caleb is really excellent at writing historical fantasy, and that's really what I'm wanting him to write. Like, it is just, I every time he tells us a new idea, I'm like, that sounds great, Caleb. Go write me a historical fantasy. Like, that's really what I want. So I'm just waiting rather impatiently. But it's been interesting because you've really taken a skill of writing novellas and you're pushing yourself to write a full-fledged novel, which is just, it's a completely different art form. People say to me regularly, they're like, oh, would you write a novella? I'm like, I don't know if I know how. Like, I mean, I've talked to you guys about writing a novella. I'm like, it's become a novel. You know, it never for me can be that concise and short. So it's a skill that I think is enviable.
Yeah, well, I very much have the opposite problem of like, I'm like really pushing myself to like actually add length to this. And Laura's like, you have to do world building. I'm like,
yes, world building must exist. In a fantasy, it must exist. Yes.
So like, it's been a good challenge, but I also do plan on writing lots of novellas. So I've already got 3 others planned in this setting.
Same world. Yeah. Derry's very happy about this because it's more of a Discworld approach. Each book exists as a separate story, but they do add to the same characters and world.
Well, I'm glad you love the idea. If you're into like darker fantasy, you may enjoy my stuff. And then I have about a million other ideas for other series too. I think I talked to you like last year about, I have an idea for like at the very least, a very short book, like Beowulf adaptation that I've been kicking around that I like the idea of.
My favorite, you know what my favorite of your ideas was, and that was your Battlestar Galactica idea.
I pitched this idea to Laura. I was like, Laura, I have this great idea for a sci-fi book. And I explained it to her, and she's like, that is a good idea, Caleb, because it's literally Battlestar Galactica. Which I never watched.
It was so funny. Josh and I were looking at each other, and I was like, he must be joking. Like, he must know this is 100% the plot to Battlestar Galactica. We still laugh about it at times. I'm like, Caleb is going to write the next Battlestar Galactica, and it's going to be awesome. But it's funny, though, because I pitched a new idea to Josh a few weeks ago, and he was like, you know that is like a huge arc in Deep Space Nine for Star Trek, right? And I was like, I did not know that. No.
There are no original stories. That's the angle I'm going to take when I write that book.
There aren't. And I mean, I love the idea that you can just kind of put your own unique spin on something and it changes it enough. But this is something that I get really miffed on pretty easily, where people are like, oh, well, romantasy is all the same. And I'm like, literally every genre is all the same. Like, there are the same elements and consistencies that are reworked and repackaged, but it is the same general concept. And there's nothing wrong with that because people know that that's what they like. In epic fantasy, we have a 16 to 18-year-old, typically, usually a male, often comes from a farm, might be a school. And lo and behold, they are thrust into a quest where they are going to defeat darkness, aka evil, with light, aka goodness. Like, that's epic fantasy in a nutshell. Romantasy has its tropes, romance has its tropes, horror has its tropes. It's fine. You know, it's absolutely fine. The Gallifrey Gals. Oh my goodness. I haven't even heard of them. That's amazing. I have an idea. Two brothers that hunt creatures, things. It's kind of the family business. They should have a name, something, name of a gun or something. Exactly. Sounds about right.
Yep.
But it's funny because, like, for indie authors, being able to market your book is obviously a really big thing. And being able to use comp titles is a massive element of marketing. Like, it's a massive, massive element. So is there any book or inspiration that you would say is kind of a comparable title or anything for Tanner's Place?
That's something I've really been struggling with. I don't want to sit here and be
Mhm.
like, oh no, my book's a precious snowflake. There's nothing like it.
Right?
But
Nothing.
uh, but I think I definitely relied on things outside of the genre,
Mhm.
like typical genre. I'd say big inspiration for me. I'm like, oh, this idea I have will work. Was when I read What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher.
Mm,
That was kind of like my roadmap. I'm like, this is how you write a good novella. This is how you
right.
get these. And like what that book does really well is atmosphere, which is something I tried to nail really hard.
Yeah.
I don't know if I did or not, but I think I came pretty close.
It definitely is atmospheric. I would say that that is for sure. There are scenes in that book where I was like, "Okay, we're in it. This is happening." And I mean, I love that. So for me, it works. Yeah, nothing is unique. If books were buildings, they would all have doors and windows and walls separating spaces. The houses aren't identical either. Exactly.
Mhm.
And I'm fine with that. I am fine with that. Well, chat, if you have any final questions for Caleb Clark about his debut novel, or any other questions in general, please feel free to spam the chat now because I think we are winding down here a little bit on a Tuesday evening.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
gonna be about that time. I'm an old man. It's my bedtime. So
Pretty much, yeah. I am not far behind you. What Moves the Dead is great. House of Usher inspired. Interesting.
hmm yep, it is House of Usher inspired, and it's very, very good.
I have read neither.
Well,
So,
you know, similar to like because I don't know anything about the Arthurian legend really, besides like broad strokes. I didn't need
mhm.
that to enjoy Winter King. You don't need House of Usher to enjoy. I actually recommend you don't read House of Usher. Just read What Moves the Dead.
Just read What Moves the Dead. That's fair
Mhm.
enough. All right, Caleb, tell everyone where the people can find you and find Tanner's Place.
Yes, I am here on YouTube under Celebrity. I don't really post right now because I'm focused more on writing, but I do hope to do that in the future. You can check out my book. It is available on Amazon and Kobo and like pretty much everywhere you'd buy books. If you want to order the paperback, I'd recommend ordering off my website, which is www.celebrity.us. That was
.us, fancy.
yeah, fancy. I didn't want to pay for .com. Uh,
Fair enough.
um, but that ordering there like directly supports me, and yeah, it's the best way to do it. Cut out the Zon, you know what I mean, but you can still get it on
Yeah,
the Zon.
I
So
hear you. It's a
uh
hard necessity.
you can also see me post on TikTok on occasion, and that is at Celebrity Rights. So
Yeah, exciting stuff. I am getting on that. The draft is going to my editor in a few days for book 2. Caleb has read it.
I have read it.
Yep, Caleb is one of 2 people that has read book 2 and the edits thus far that have been done to book 2. Thank you so much. I hope that you are enjoying The Forgotten Dawn. Caleb shall be checking out your book for sure, which is very exciting.
Terrific.
Well, thank you everyone for coming and hanging out with us on a Tuesday night. If you catch us on a replay, let us know in the comments what it is you've been reading or watching that you have been loving. And as always, I hope that you are all well, stay well, and hope that you have wonderful reads ahead of you, like Tanner's Place, in your near future. So thanks, everybody, and we will see you next time.
Bye bye.
Bye.